I start. Okay, my name is Bob Kazungu. I'm the National Red Plus Focal Point for Uganda. I sit at the Ministry of Water and Environment, headquarters in Kampala, Uganda. I also am an Assistant Commissioner for Forestry in charge of assessment and monitoring for the country. Was made in implementing REDD Plus. But maybe just to let you know that REDD Plus is implemented at 3 different levels or stages. The first one is the readiness phase, in which we are obligated as countries who have signed up for REDD Plus implementation to design what we call Warsaw frameworks, 4 Warsaw frameworks, which include the national strategy and action plan for REDD for a particular country, the national forest reference emission level, which is the baseline, the safeguards information system, which is a tool, an instrument to track how we have complied and how we are reporting on safeguards, on the Cancun safeguards of REDD Plus. And then also the 4th element is the issue of the National Forest Monitoring System, which tracks the implementation of or the creation of emission reductions or carbon credits in the country. So those 4 also elements are what comprise the readiness phase of REDD Plus. But in addition to those, there are other supporting frameworks like the benefit sharing arrangement, like the feedback grievance redress mechanism, like the gender action plans, among others. The second stage of REDD Plus is what we call the implementation stage. Other people call it investment stages, depending on how a country has decided to name it. And during that time, there is what we call investments into REDD Plus. There are projects that are developed that are going to generate REDD Plus credits. So during that time, there is a lot of capacity building, there's a lot of learning, because some of those projects are actually implemented as demonstration, REDD Plus demonstration projects. So it is against that investment or implementation stage that then the REDD Plus is ushered into the last phase, which is the results-based payments phase. So that's when we are looking at the investments that we have done and how we are now getting REDD Plus carbon credits out of them. Because the ultimate goal of REDD Plus is to reduce emissions. So whatever you do, the end result is for you to have reduced emissions, based on a certain baseline. So those 3 stages of REDD Plus implementation are the ones against which progress has been made. And the different countries are at different levels. In fact, for most of the countries that signed up for REDD Plus implementation and became party to the REDD Plus, majority of them have been able to, in Africa, have been able to conclude their readiness phases. I can give examples, like Uganda, for example. We've already developed the Warsaw elements, the 4 Warsaw elements. Ethiopia has done just the same. Ghana has also done just the same. Many countries, Nigeria, have been able to have all these readiness frameworks in place, for which they are just trying to improve them. There are other countries like Ghana, for example, and Ethiopia have gone ahead to even implement carbon projects, and to an extent that some of them have even been able to get carbon credits. And we have examples, for example, in Ghana, we have REDD Plus credits that are being paid for under the cocoa agroforestry project in Ghana, for example. We go to countries like Kenya, the number of REDD Plus projects, like the Kasigao REDD Plus project, for example, is been able to deliver some REDD Plus credits, which have been paid for. So different countries at different levels. There are countries that we know, like Cameroon, for example, that have not completed their readiness phase. They have not completed their Warsaw elements. You're getting me? So what I can say about progress generally is that different countries are at different levels, but the majority of them the 5 activities of REDD+. The first activity is reducing emissions. So the activities that you do that will reduce emissions, and there are many, they may not necessarily be forestry projects. You know, they could be in other sectors like energy, for example. If you are trying to do improved cookstoves, for example, you are reducing on what would have been emitted if you are using traditional 3-stone cooking facilities. So that is an activity of REDD, although it is not forestry specific, but is in another sector, right? Although they are using wood as a source of energy. Then, so that is one activity. The other activity is reducing degradation, for example, right? So there is reducing deforestation with reducing degradation. So reducing deforestation means, for example, that you are protecting and conserving, you are protecting a forestry estate, you know, against encroachment, for example, against illegal cutting down of trees, for example. All right. So that is that's an activity that can be done and can be called what? A REDD+ activity. And that's why even the methodologies of computing REDD+ credits, we have what we call planned and unplanned deforestation methodologies, for example. Then the other activity is reducing degradation. The activities that you do that will actually enhance the provision of services by forestry estates. Because degradation is about reducing the ability of a forest to deliver ecosystem services. So if a forest has been protected, if a forest has been restored, so that is able to deliver, you know, the ecosystem services, for example, then you are reducing degradation. So those success stories are there in terms of reducing both deforestation and degradation. But the plus sign of REDD+ is about sustainable forest management. The activities that you do that show that you are managing certain forests well, right? For example, you are looking at biodiversity aspects. All these are aspects of sustainable forest management. And these are success stories with implementation of and they are there. There are quite a number of them. We have national parks in my country, Uganda. We have game reserves. We have national central forest reserves that have actually been managed very well with all the requirements for fire protection and fire prevention, for example. And that is part of sustainable forest management. It's a benefit accruing from a REDD+ implementation or activity. They also have enhancement of carbon stocks, for example. If you planted trees, for example, you will be able to increase on the capacity of that landscape or ecosystem to sink carbon, and that is enhancement of carbon stocks. So the plus includes sustainable forest management, enhancement of carbon stocks, and conservation of forests. There are some forests that you do not have to touch. For example, our national parks in many parts of this world is a no-go area. You're supposed to leave them as they are for as long as you can. So those are benefits, those are successes that there are so many examples that we can give across the African continent. You're talking about the project that brings us here, the one that is the REDD+ itself. When you look at this across the countries, indeed, one of the key aspects of REDD+ implementation is what we call social inclusion. And social inclusion means that you're not leaving anybody out of the picture. So what does that mean, therefore? That even when there are benefits that are supposed to be shared amongst different players or stakeholders, you make sure that no stakeholder is left out. So, for example, if we sell carbon credits under REDD+, which many countries have done, as I mentioned to you, I gave examples of Ghana and others, it means that there is an amount of resources of money which is going to be in a certain coffer for sharing back with the communities, the people who contributed to those carbon credits. And that sharing arrangement in a place is already a benefit going out to the different stakeholders or our people you outlined as beneficiaries in the implementation of that project. So in terms of benefits, it is just an obvious issue with a REDD+ project, because you can never deliver a REDD+ project without taking into consideration stakeholder engagement, without taking into consideration inclusion of everybody, both the gender aspects of inclusion, but also the inclusion of people like the indigenous peoples, because these are part of the requirement for us to comply with what we call the Cancun safeguards for REDD+. So it is just correct and true that every REDD Plus project implemented well, like this one, like these ones we're talking about in these countries in Africa, there is benefits that have been accrued from implementation and benefits that have been shared across the board. And whether they are monetary or non-monetary benefits, the benefits are there. You see now, REDD Plus is evolving for the countries that have completed the readiness phase, and they're now in implementation stage, and probably they are starting to do the results-based payments phase. You find that the future requires actually that we embed, because even when we sell these REDD Plus credits and get results based payments, we need to continue. We need to continue to reduce emissions. We need to continue to reduce deforestation. We need to continue to reduce degradation. We need to continue to enhance carbon credits. We need to continue to conserve forests, because it's a cycle. It's a cycle. I mean, you can't receive a payment and you stop there. So you need to put in much more of the money. What does it mean, therefore? That in terms of future planning, we must embed and make sure that we incorporate or embed all the REDD Plus actions into the strategic frameworks, both development policies, but also strategies and plans for each of the countries. So in terms of the future, this is very key for us as REDD Plus stakeholders to take note of. The second point is that capacity has to continue to be built, because REDD Plus falls within the framework of carbon and climate change discussions. And so a lot of capacity has to be built across the board. There are decisions which keep coming every year at the conference of parties. Some of them require people to update their mind on the new requirements for reporting, for example, because REDD Plus provides part of the reporting within the AFOLU sector of the greenhouse gas emissions reporting, for example, as one example. And so we need to build capacity as REDD Plus. So there must be a capacity building plan specific to the REDD Plus implementation in the future, because there are so many things we don't know. There are so many things that keep coming up. There are so many young people that keep getting out of university. They must understand this REDD Plus issue. The other last point, things that are practical for countries, is that most of the REDD Plus frameworks have been done at national level. Now is the time for us to decentralize REDD Plus implementation. Let people of the lowest nature in each of these countries now understand what it means to implement a REDD Plus project. So for me, in terms of, and of course also the financing, external financing needs to be mobilized. So there must be a resource mobilization plan for purposes of enhancing REDD Plus activity implementation, because we cannot let it go just like that. We must continue to invest more money in REDD Plus implementation. It's a, it's an approach, an initiative, which is a beautiful initiative. We must continue. We must continue to implement it. We must continue to bring more people on board. The issue of carbon trade is becoming a very political issue, and so we must be able to reach out to the places we have never gone. For example, we have to reach out to the highest offices, decision makers. So the advocacy for REDD Plus implementation is something that I would like to mention here, that all the REDD Plus stakeholders, anybody implementing REDD Plus, must understand that carbon trade can become very political. So we must be able to get means of how to tear through some of the barriers that could arise as a result of politicking in terms of carbon and carbon trade. I just want to say that it's a pleasure to be part of REDD Plus implementation as a national REDD Plus focal point. I would like to say that the REDD Plus mechanism is one of the best that can deliver all the objectives of our nationally determined contributions. Our NDCs rely quite strongly on REDD Plus actions. And even our countries need to understand that the issue of climate change is very serious, and it is only at this point in time that the benefits of REDD Plus can be achieved if we can only support each other, if we can have communities engaged, if we can have effective social inclusion in the manner we implement REDD+. That's all that I can say for now.